Our gospel comes to us from Luke, the 18th chapter. Then Jesus told them a parable about their need to pray always and not to lose heart. He said, "In a certain city there was a judge who neither feared God nor had respect for people. In that city there was a widow who kept coming to him and saying, 'Grant me justice against my accuser.' For a while he refused, but later he said to himself, 'Though I have no fear of God and no respect for anyone, yet because this widow keeps bothering me, I will grant her justice, so that she will not wear me out by continually coming.' And the Lord said, 'Listen to what the unjust judge says. And will not God grant justice to his chosen ones who cry to him day and night? Will he delay long in helping them? I tell you, he will quickly grant justice to them. And yet, when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on earth?' This is the word of the Lord. You may be seated. I'd like to invite the children forward of any variety. All right. How you doing, Thomas? Weird, yeah. Tired, potentially?
Tired.
You're not tired. Okay, so you apparently can go to bed at 9 p.m. and be fine the next morning.
I'm having a scene like a block SPI.
You're thinking about that. Okay, good morning. There's lots of uniforms today here. Could I see a couple of uniforms and you guys can tell me what they mean? You three at the end there in particular. What's the handkerchief mean? You don't know. Okay, Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts. We've got different levels and ranks, though, right? Do we have anybody doing Webelos? Yeah, that's what I was hoping you would have said, yeah. You're not wearing your uniform because you're from a different troop, though.
Yes, I'm doing Webelos.
You're in Webelos as well. Okay, what age are you guys? But what age do you do Webelos at? 9 or 10, okay. And then I can't see what you got on next to the... Nice, Arrow Light, okay. And then you in between there, what rank are you at? Tiger, nice. Okay, and how old are you for Tigers? I think that's one that you're going to skip, Thomas, if we go in this next year. Yeah, Thomas is going to be 8 when he enters. So yeah, all right. So we've got lots of different levels and responsibilities. In addition to those uniforms, Evelyn, you're wearing something special today too. What are you dressed as? What are you doing? That one, the outer one. Yeah. Remember what it's called? Starts with an A. Thomas, can you help her? What's the word?
The
Acolyte. Okay, very good. And we've got a couple of adults that are dressed in uniforms that indicates their job too, because there are adult helpers for both Scouts and Cub Scouts, because we've got girls. Behind me, there's Bill Walker. Bill Walker, you're wearing something special. What are you doing today?
I'm
Assisting minister, choir members. You guys don't have special uniforms on. You could. I actually have the robes upstairs. They've got a lot of your names on them. Elena, you've got a job here too as well. Believe it or not, there's this passage here we just read. It says, "As for you, be sober in everything, endure suffering, do the work of an evangelist, carry out your ministry fully." Lots of you seem to have jobs here today. Lots of you have ministries. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and say that everyone here today has a job, and it's as a ministry of one. Each of you independently has something that you're supposed to do. Not just in today's service. Good job with the candles, Evelyn. That was excellently done. Great job getting these banners up here, color guard. That was excellently done. In your daily life as well, each and every one of us has a job. And that job is to make sure that we fully and love the world the way that God loved the world. I don't know what that's going to look like. That might mean helping the new kid out. That might mean helping out with dishes. That might mean doing good listening for mom and dad. It might mean selling popcorn. It might mean selling pumpkins. It might mean all sorts of different things. But whatever it is, we are told that we have a job to do. Thank you for doing your job today. And I appreciate that all of you are helping out to make this ministry, our collective ministry, happen, especially the Scouts on this Scout Sunday. So we got a song that we sing as we remember that we are children of God doing that work. It goes like this. If anybody asks you who I am, who I am, who I am, if anybody asks you who I am, tell them I'm a child of God. If you would join me in prayer. O Lord, may the meditations of my heart and the words of my mouth be acceptable to you, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. Amen. So, Thomas and I were having a conversation in the car the other day as a cop car with its lights on zoomed by us. And just as a little aside, do you guys get as frustrated as I do when you see the cop car in your rearview mirror and you pull over and like 2 or 3 cars behind you just pass you because they haven't pulled over yet, and you're like, this was not an opportunity for you to overtake me. This was trying to let an emergency vehicle through. Okay, never mind. Anyway, that's a frustration that I hold very dear to my heart. And anyway, so car passes me, and Thomas asked me a question. He goes, do you think that the cops ever just turn their lights on because they want to get somewhere faster? And I said, no, maybe. No, I said to him, no, that's absolutely not. And he goes, well, do they speed when they're in their own cars? They're pulling speeders over all the time. Do you think the cops, when they drive home from the station, go 65 instead of 55? And I said, well, so here's the deal, Thomas. They shouldn't. And in fact, I could tell you, I chaplain for the police department. Our philosophy is that if you are going to become an officer of the law, you are held to a higher standard. Actually, you need to not only not speed and follow the law, you should be above reproach. In fact, that's what we say in our founding documents together as a country, is that there are certain people to whom great responsibility is afforded and great things. They carry a weapon, they drive a car, they're exempt from certain laws from time to time. Therefore, they should be the highest echelon of honorable citizens here in this country. Is that always the truth? Well, no. I mean, unfortunately, we live in a broken world that's filled with people who don't do the right thing all the time. And yeah, I mean, what Chief King said to me, he goes, nobody hates a bad cop more than a good cop. And I think that's true, because that denigrates the entire trust in the institution that is supposed to go along with wearing the badge, having the uniform. But it's also realistic to know that we're dealing with people, right? I think that this is something that you can climb all the way up the system from the lowest cop to the highest judge, and on the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is supposed to be filled with people who are absolutely above reproach and absolutely above partisanship, right? And yet, you guys have, collectively, we've been around long enough to know that depending on whose administration is in charge when the appointing of a Supreme Court judge is done, it makes an incredible difference. There is no person who is above partisanship, and now it's this weird third rail in our governance that basically depends on when somebody in office dies and who happens to be in charge of the White House at the time. I think if you grew up as a Democrat, or if you grew up as a Republican, in the early part of your life, you probably saw the Supreme Court judges filled with activists who undermined the conservative agenda. And likely, the next pathway forward, if you're a Democrat, you're going to see them hamstring you the same way. It's very frustrating, because that's not the way the system is supposed to work, right? We in our founding documents as a nation, designed it so that justice at the highest level is supposed to be meted out, and it's supposed to be above any sort of meddling. And I blame our founding fathers, and I blame them because there weren't any Lutherans there. And that we needed to have at least maybe Hamilton or maybe some of the other, they should have been a Lutheran, because Lutherans knew that if a person can be tempted to do something, if there is any way that a human system can be broken, it will be broken. That is just what it is. In our story today, coming out of the gospel, we hear about some judges, and this judge is also a part of the actual world that we find ourselves in, right? This is a judge who is not the paragon that we're supposed to expect, but it's actually the realistic thing, which is that this judge is a broken person who is actually completely broken, has no fear of people and has no fear of God, is completely corrupt. Now, when we read Scripture together and when we do parables especially, I've noticed a pattern with people. The pattern is you can ask them, where do you find yourself in this parable? Like, where do you see yourself? But they are almost always mostly looking for where God is. Who is God, especially in this parable? And because we have a sort of prime where we're trying to find, look, well, who is God? Well, I just got to find the most important person, right? I got to find the most powerful person in this parable, and that person is going to be the stand-in for God. That doesn't work in this case. The most important person, the person who has the power potentially of justice, of life, of death, of whether or not the right thing is done, is the person who is farthest from the character of God. The unjust judge cannot be a stand-in for God. However, the unjust judge can be a stand-in for the world that you find yourselves in. That is the unfortunate truth of it, is that we do live in a broken world. Now, here's where I'm going to dig this hole even deeper for you. Yeah, no, you thought this was depressing enough as it is. But the problem of this world that we live in is that it's of our own creation. No time more than now, too. The age that we're living in was supposed to be the age of promise for our own human input. We've been promised that our politics, through representative democracy, were going to be a representation of the input of what we wanted, what the people wanted to see in their politics. We've been told that our economy, far from being a peasant economy, was one where we were participants, share owners, where we would have a say in what gets built and what is bought and the material structure of our world. We were told that our very platforms and social nature, the things that went online, Facebook and what all that stuff, that was going to create the kind of communities of our own making, that we would be able to select in to the kind of healthy communities that we asked for. This was the promise of the algorithm in every way, whether it's Amazon's pushing you something purchase, or whether it's Facebook's friend recommendations, any of what this is, or any of the political advisors who know exactly how to try to influence you towards their candidate. But this is supposed to be our deepest desires made manifest. And who among you has walked around this week and looked at what we have and been satisfied? Who among you has said, good, I love this world that we've built for one another? I don't think I've met a single person. And actually, I think that most people who come to church are here because they're looking for a better world. They're looking for something that they can do to make the world into a better place. And they don't believe that the systems we have in place are going to cause that, especially if they're not fixed. I'm going to give you a quick, this is a three-part, how do we fix it for ourselves first, and then we're going to talk about that. And I think that the three-part thing is, to me, something that the scouts are going to hear this and say, oh, I get this. So here's how you get out of the algorithm in three small parts. Number one, you have to go into nature. The attention economy, the way that we're supposed to be grabbed by these devices and are supposed to be manipulated by emotions, that's a human part of us that is actually designed better to work when we're out in nature, noticing colors that approach us, noticing animals that our human brains are designed to look for and listen for. This is actually tapping into what our nervous system is really designed to do, which is to go out and be in nature. And nature and finding the beauty in nature leads to the second thing, which I believe is art. If you can appreciate beauty as it is found in God's kingdom, we should appreciate also the fact that humans can appreciate that beauty. And sometimes we create it ourselves, and sometimes we appreciate it in others as well. And when we appreciate the fact that there is beauty and dignity to be found in one another, then we open up the pathway to community. And I don't mean the kind of community that's driven by an external, algorithmic way of thinking, but the kind of community that's authentic, that belongs from being a part of a group, where you're seen, where you contribute, where all these things work together. So there it is. That's the three-step process. That was pretty simple, right? Just Go out in nature, listen to some art or get some art, whatever kind you like, and then form communities. And I'm happy that we have that very process available to us right now. But even if we do all that perfectly, we're confronted by the fact that we may have, for ourselves, escaped from the system, but the system itself is too big. It exists over everything. And again, if we go back to the beginning of this, it's of our own making. We are the architects of the pain that we feel. The amazing thing about where you find God in today's passage of the unjust judge is you find it in the widow. You find God's persistence in trying to find us. God's never given up on us. God's petitions are endless, and he's petitioning for us to change, but also for there to be a better way, a more full way that recognizes who we are. This is the great mystery of the faith, that we look at a parable like the unjust judge, and we see that God is present not always as the one who is in charge of all things and has preordained a puppet universe where no choice is allowed, but goodness is found, but instead we find the God of the cross, the God of the widow, the God of enormous suffering. And in some amazing way, the God that manages to be with the powerless ones, the God who is in the brokenness, completes God, who is in charge of all things. This is what we talk about in terms of the holy mystery, that God can be both omnipotent and God can be completely crucified. How can that God exist at the same time? I don't have any answer for you. That's what a mystery does. A mystery invites us to ponder it more. But God's mystery isn't just a mystery, it's an invitation. And this is my invitation to you this week. I invite you to think about how this God might be calling you amidst a world that is full of injustice and brokenness. God might be asking you how you might not only better yourself through Pastor Jim's simple 3-part process, but also how you might be a part of changing those systems for the better so that we are part of a better world. And ultimately, at the end of the day, this is a message of invitation for others as well, because so much of the world is looking around and is unsatisfied and in pain. And they're waiting for you to show them a better way. Thank you for our scouts joining us today, because I believe that you're a part of that process. And thank you for all of you who are doing your ministry faithfully and soberly in the world today. Amen.